Dr. Percival Huxley was not a man of the world, yet he quietly changed the course of scientific thought in ways few could understand during his lifetime. Born in the tranquil village of Elmbury, England, in 1898, Percival was different from the very beginning. While other children played in the fields or built toy castles, little Percival would sit for hours dismantling old watches or scribbling strange formulas in a tattered notebook. He had an unusual fascination with sound, movement, and invisible forces that governed the world around him. His father, Harold Huxley, was a modest tailor who barely made ends meet. Despite having little education, Harold encouraged his son's curiosity in quiet, practical ways. He would bring home discarded clocks or broken tools for Percival to tinker with. His mother, Martha, was a gentle woman who feared her son's solitary habits but trusted his mind. Was destined for something rare. At the age of 17, Percival won a scholarship to Oxford University. There, surrounded by brilliant minds and boundless libraries, he found his true calling. He studied physics with an intensity that worried his professors, not because he lacked discipline, but because he asked questions no one else dared to ask. His thesis, Unconventional Sources of Mechanical Energy, presented in 1921, introduced the idea that energy could be harvested from ambient sound and vibrations in the environment. Though the paper was considered theoretical fantasy by many at the time, it attracted the interest of a few open-minded thinkers. After graduating, Percival refused offers from prestigious institutions. He believed bureaucracy stifled imagination and hand-drawn blueprints. There he spent days, often nights, alone with his instruments. His world was silent but not empty. He once wrote in his diary, "Silence is not the absence of sound, but the presence of potential." In 1932, after years of experimentation, he unveiled a prototype of what he called the aural converter, a generator that transformed ambient sound waves into usable electrical energy. The device could light a small bulb using only the sound of nearby conversations. Although the invention was ahead of its time, it was met with skepticism. Industrial investors dismissed it as impractical. "It's fascinating," one engineer said, "but the world runs on oil and coal, not whispers and birdsong." Undeterred, Huxley pressed on. When World War II broke out, Britain faced the dire need for technological advancements. Hidden behind the war headlines, a secret unit within the government quietly recruited unconventional minds. Percival was one of them. He was brought into a top-secret radar development project. Though he was not a military man, his understanding of wave behavior helped solve critical flaws in radar signal detection. His improvements allowed radar systems to distinguish between enemy aircraft and flocks of birds, a problem that had baffled engineers for months. Due to the classified nature of the work, Percival never received public credit. He returned to Elmbury as quietly as he had left. Most villagers believed he had merely been ill or away on city business. Even his own parents knew little of what he had accomplished. As the war ended and the world celebrated victory, Dr. Huxley delved deeper into his research. He began investigating the frequencies of the human brain, subtle electric patterns that changed with thought, emotion, and memory. He theorized that every human being emitted a unique frequency signature, and that in the right conditions, it might be possible to detect or even influence it. This theory led to his final and most ambitious invention, the frequency resonance device, FRD. The FRD was not a weapon, nor a medical tool. Percival described it as an observatory of the mind. But in late 1963, something went wrong. While running an intense wave simulation using the FRD, he collapsed in his laboratory. A neighbor, concerned by the lack of movement for several days, found him unconscious beside the humming device. He was rushed to the hospital in Oxford. Doctors discovered he had suffered severe neurological damage, likely due to prolonged exposure to low-frequency electromagnetic radiation. He lost his ability to speak and write. His body survived, but his voice and his intellect had been silenced. For the last 8 months of his life, he lay in a hospital bed, his eyes filled with longing. Nurses reported that he would often stare at the ceiling as if calculating something only he could see. A few believed he tried to communicate through blinking or tapping, but no one could decipher his final thoughts. He died on April 2, 1964, at the age of 66. After his death, researchers and archivists from Oxford University visited his laboratory. They were stunned to find hundreds of pages of notes, diagrams, and partially built machines, many of which described theories and mechanisms that would only be explored by mainstream science. Decades later, among his notes was a single sheet, burned slightly at the edges, on which he had written, "Truth is not always loud. Sometimes it hides in silence, waiting for minds willing to hear." Today, Dr. Percival Huxley is remembered not as a celebrity scientist, but as a quiet pioneer whose work continues to inspire physicists, engineers, and philosophers alike. His original frequency resonance device is preserved in the Oxford Museum of Science, and his story is taught in specialized courses on the history of alternative energy and early brainwave research, though he never sought fame and never asked for recognition. Percival Huxley's legacy lives on, not in headlines or awards, but in the quiet pulse of discovery he helped ignite in the minds of those who followed.